and the Apollo mythology, and the angelic mythology, and the Agigi. And if you haven't heard the Agigi before, they're written about like ancient Babylon and Sumer. And some of these ancient cultures, I think we can find iconography that will actually connect to some of the native petroglyphs we're going to look at, which makes me believe, based upon the evidence, that there was actually a global trade network. And a lot of the petroglyphs are going to be based on plasma as well, which Diamond is going to be able to explain the science on that even better. I'll just do a quick outline of that. But this is kind of cool because this looks like the Leap Project logo. So I wanted to take a photo of that. And Ransom actually told me about this first, so I didn't see that before I came up with the idea for the logo, but I thought that's neat. The hand is usually a representation of like protection or healing, and so I just thought I'd show that. But let's first go to birds and creation. So myths from several regions associate birds with the creation of the world. One of several creation stories in ancient Egypt said that when land rose out of the primeval waters of chaos, the first deity to appear was a bird perching on that land. What's interesting is, when we look at a lot of these petroglyphs, we'll see birds coming out of the heads, or what appears to look like a bird coming out of somebody's head, an anthropomorphic figure. And so we have talked about maybe that is similar to the Squatterman and like a plasma effect or something in the aurora that people were watching, and they had to write that down in stone because they were so fascinated by it. And because of the chaos and creation that it brought, comets bring life, comets also bring destruction. I think that has something to do with the birds often appearing at the top of the head or above the heads, and oftentimes the birds are at the very top of the Petroglyph panel, which seems to have like a supernatural or almost like a mystical, spiritual connection. And so supernatural related to forces beyond the normal world, magical or miraculous, deity, a god or a goddess. And if you look at some of the gods and the goddesses in Egypt and ancient Sumer, oftentimes you'll see them depicted, they'll have like a falcon. I think Horus has a falcon on his head, and that's really, I think, fascinating when you especially look at the creation myths of birds. And so this right here, it also can bring life, it can bring death, and it can be a carrier of the soul, the representation of the bird. So I thought I'd point that out first. And then this is a map of some of the places we've actually gone and looked at petroglyphs. And we've been to Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, a lot of stuff in Utah. And even in California, there's a place called Blythe, California, and it's got these geoglyphs, which are on the ground. It's off the 33rd degree parallel, and you can actually see these glyphs from the air. They're that big. And we think that it's connected to the civilization in Peru that has all of those geoglyphs on the ground that you can see. And whether or not the aliens made them is debatable, but it was clearly a highly advanced civilization. And that also connects the possibility that these ley lines, like the 33rd degree parallel, there's certain energy that the Earth creates, like magnetic forces, that at a time, when they were traveling, they could use craft to, with the magnetic forces of the Earth, so they didn't need to use gasoline or jet fuel. But it's really interesting to get the 33rd degree parallel, which is where we were yesterday, looking at some of these in the Three Rivers petroglyphs area. That's off the 33rd degree parallel as well. And now let's take a look at some of the petroglyphs here. No, first I'm going to go to the Perot paper. And does anybody have any questions yet? Any comments? Okay, cool. So this is the Perot paper, the characteristics for the occurrence of a high current Z-pinch. And this was as recorded in antiquity. Anthony Perot is a legend amongst legends. And he works at Los Alamos, or he did work at Los Alamos. And he was doing experiments with like 1 million+ volts of plasma, and he was able to create these simulations in the laboratory as well as computer simulations that look like the petroglyphs that we were looking at yesterday and many of the petroglyphs around the world, and some of the iconography with the gods and the goddesses in Egypt and ancient Sumer, which based upon the evidence I would say that could lead to some of these gods were attempting to mimic what they saw in the heavens, and sometimes the gods, the major gods, could be representing the planets or actually constellations. It's astrotheology, we'll talk about that in a bit. But this is the Birkeland Current, and this is an artist's depiction of the Birkeland Current flowing into and out of the Earth's atmosphere at high latitude. These currents, once the subject of intense debate, are routinely measured by today's satellites and have total magnitudes of millions of amperes, megaamperes, and then scroll down a little bit here. This is an inflow of a current convecting plasma column, and this was using, I think, 5 million volts or 3 million amps of plasma to create what kind of looks like a Squatterman. And then down here, they were getting instabilities in the laboratory in space using 1 to 1.3 million amps of plasma. And this is like a plasma column. This looks similar to some of the petroglyphs that you're going to see. And
Yeah,
then,
Rex, if you go back up to that upper paper, that page there,
yeah,
those are the actual experiments that Pratt did. He had no idea at this time that anyone was going to connect that experiment with petroglyphs when he did that. And he took those pictures of the spiral, and up on the top pictures, they call those funnels. They call them plasma funnels. Now the interesting thing is that the oldest petroglyphs, pictographs in the United States, North America, are a particular style called barrier. And these are the gigantic funnel anthropomorphs. These are people that are shaped like giant triangles.
Or they look like big
Which I've
blocks
got-
sometimes.
And they're totally creepy. And so it was because of that, and I'll talk about the happenstance where someone said, hey, I think you got something here. Take a look at these petroglyphs. And then that's how all this began.
Yeah, those particular petroglyphs, they often look like big sort of blocky robots or these weird triangles, and they show up everywhere.
But in the archaeologists call them anthropomorphs, and everyone agrees that they represent people.
which I need to find. I want to show you those real quick.
Except us.
Sago Canyon, here we go.
Yeah,
These guys. So, no, that's newspaper
No, there's
rock.
one right up top, Rex. In that panel, there's one at the top of the panel.
I want to show you the robot-looking dudes, the real big ones. Here we go.
Yeah.
So these are the real old ones you were talking about, right, Diamond?
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this guy right here, he looks like a robot. I mean, he's even got the antenna thing. You think, or Marvin the Martian. And what's also fascinating is, let me go.
How many people shot at those petroglyphs?
Yeah, you know what? And they've actually been vandalized. Some of them have been vandalized since then, which is really it's absurd. But I'm going to talk about this for in a minute. Don and I disagree on this guy, but it could be plasma, and it actually kind of looks like plasma now where I look at it. But where's the one I wanted to show you? No, that's not it. There's one in here. Comparison of two people in between the actual larger petroglyphs, and I'm not seeing it. Here we go, right here. See these guys? That's two people, right there. Two anthropomorphic figures. So I look at that as Adam and Eve, and then you've got these humongous petroglyphs or pictographs, I guess, because they're actually they're not just pegged in. They use some type of pigmentation to get those there. Look at how much larger they are than these two people right here. So I'm wondering, are these actually beings? Are these shadows, possibly, of like a ceremonial dance? Or are they showing something that was happening in the heavens, possibly? Or is this just a cheat? But why do they have arms? And there are a lot of these petroglyphs where they don't have arms, they're very large, and they almost look like ghost people. It's really interesting. So I don't know what these are, but I find them fascinating by the size. But it does look kind of like tribal here, they're doing here. And if there was a shadow, if you're doing a ceremonial dance and there's a shadow, and that might be what the shadows could look like. So, but now I'm going to show you some of the other. So this is in newspaper rock. And you said, Leah, there was one on here that was this guy?
The top in the middle.
Right here?
The guy on the right.
The brown guy.
Yeah.
The brown guy.
The oldest ones, right? These are the older
That's
ones.
literally the Pratt funnel.
Yeah.
So you think this is the Perot funnel right here?
Their picture is open right behind it. Down the bottom right.
Yeah, we can just compare it right now.
And you can even see the little evidence of a head in the middle.
See that?
Yeah.
I mean, this, and then when we were looking at those big columns yesterday, some of the big columns we were looking at look kind of like this. In the experiment, and then this was, I think, the plasma. Was this the computer simulation? Right?
The top one's computer, the one with the multiple lines there, yeah.
This one's computer,
Yeah.
and then this was the plasma. And then you'll see a lot of these columns, and they could be like Jacob's ladder. And then you brought up also yesterday the Babylon, the fall of Babylon, the Babylon Tower. That was interesting.
Yeah.
So these are just different simulations that that Perot did in the lab. And I wanted to just show some of the petroglyph stuff here down here. Scroll through. Here we go. See all these different locations that they saw with Squatterman. And then, here we can see Squatterman, and then we can also see, there's some stuff on here that I find interesting. Here's the Birkeland, but there's a couple handprints, big handprints that have like 6 fingers that I was going to show off. But I think is evidence of maybe the Nephilim, not like the biblical description, but a large race of people with 6.
I see some six toes
Yeah, straight at the bottom of the
right
middle.
there.
Right there?
6 toes.
Yeah, so you see this one's got 5, and then this one's got 6, right? So those are 2 different clans, or 2 different icons, or obviously that means something clearly different. But these don't necessarily look totally like, they look like weird feet. They look like really weird feet.
Well, if
Now,
it had 6, maybe it had 6 toes.
would have come out like him, it might. But see this guy right here? And how this, like an entire elk, it looks like it's coming out of his head? That's some type of plasma event. That's something that they were seeing in the heavens. And one of the things that I've wondered is, when you'll see the gods and the goddesses that are depicted, and then they've got something on like this beautiful headdress, or a bird, or a falcon on their head, is that depicting the event? So now they're putting it in like a as above, so below form. Magic, ritual. A lot of the leaders are really into magic and rituals, and things happen on certain days because they're into the numerology and the astrotheology. And a lot of the gods and the goddesses depict astrotheology, whether it's a part of the zodiac wheel or it's a part of a planet. So that's my theory on some of these depictions here, with stuff coming out of their heads. Really
Rex, can I derail you again real quick?
Please, yeah.
Back up to, over here, yeah, to the Squatterman here at various parts of the world.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that suppose there was a plasma configuration that was showing up in the sky.
Yep.
It may be the case that you might see these different forms of Squatterman depending on the perspective with which you're looking at the plasma formation. So it may explain some of the small differences when you see these glyphs
Because they're in different
globally.
locations of the world.
Right.
Well, it explains Italy and Armenia.
Yeah.
Well, you can, and then you can prove this based on current scientific knowledge, because when people, aurora watchers, when they go out, they don't always see aurora. But the one guy standing in the right field in Wyoming sees it, but the guy that was in Ontario doesn't see anything. And because on that Birkeland Current, the energy is moving around, just like the aurora is moving in the sky. You have to be standing at the right place at the right time. Everyone knows that. And one of the best places, obviously, is Iceland, or when you're actually up in the Birkeland Current sheath there. So,
Like Norway even.
yeah, the odds of seeing something there are very high. In order to see it in a lot of these locations, it would be a solar storm that no one has ever experienced, obviously.
Yeah, way more than what we normally get with the Northern Lights.
But again, a lot of people that watch Rex and I are the videos, which almost no one watches our Petroglyph videos.
Yeah, we get a lot less views on the petroglyphs. Now, the Akalu is, notice the Akalu is a eagle-headed birdman, and he's holding a bag here. He has what looks like a really nice watch and a pine cone. And people in Christian mythology and Christian beliefs, you've got the angels, the winged beings that are the messengers of God. And in ancient Sumer, it's not much different. The bringers of life were bird people. And whether or not they were really bird people, I don't know, but the wings depict that they came from above. Whether or not it's outer space, or another planet, or another dimension, or the heavens, or a different dimension, that's all, we can debate that a lot. But what we do know is this is the Me, the M-E, it's called M-E, the Me, which makes me think it's cosmic or the divine DNA. It's what makes people. The watch here could represent the soul, because it's a flower similar to what some people believe the soul looks like. The pine cone would represent the pineal gland, which is our connection to God, it's our connection to Source. And he's coming down, giving us that extra connection. But also, what's fascinating is the Akalu are also sometimes referenced as the fish people. And Enki is oftentimes connected with the fish people and Neptune and the waters. But the Akalu were talked about in ancient king list, an ancient king list that was discovered in Greece, and it was written about the time of Alexander the Great by it was by the priest of Bel-Marduk. His name is Berosus. And he wrote a king list of 10 kings that ruled for 432,000 years, which is a sacred number, 432 hertz. And they actually came from the waters They didn't come from the heavens, they came from the waters. And they describe a man coming out of the waters in a suit and teaching knowledge to mankind, and then he would leave every night and he would come back. So I find it so interesting that there's these two different types of kalu. Some come from the water, and some come from the heavens above. But some of the petroglyphs that we're going to look at can actually be like an archaic version of possibly the kalu. This was interesting. We found this in Fried Canyon area. You said it wasn't Fried Canyon, but was it Fried Canyon?
Mossback Butte.
But okay.
They're near each other.
Yeah, and I want to thank Alan. Alan's not here with us, but I want to thank Alan and on the camera, because he actually told us about this place. He discovered it a long time ago, and I'm really glad I had the opportunity to go out there, because we found in this area what looks like. I want to show this off real quick too. Is he holding a shield, or is it like is it a wormhole? Is it, what is that? And who is this guy? And what is that? We found this close to what looks like a Viking sailboat, or some type of sailboat right here. And this is in the middle of the desert. So you're in the middle of the desert, and what appears to be a boat with the sail down. And if you zoom in on this, doesn't it look like they're putting animals on a boat? It's so bizarre.
Like Noah's Ark.
Yeah, like Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
But we're in the middle of the desert. There's no water out here.
Another motif on there, if you zoom it back out full
Yeah,
size, is
yeah.
that it looks like a seed or an egg. Keep going out to the right, and we see these like 8, 10, 12, 30 feet long.
Yeah.
Some sites where you have that thing and a line that comes out and it goes to the full length of the panel.
Sometimes it's horizontal, sometimes it's vertical.
Sometimes yeah. So that's very important.
And that's actually on this one too. That's on this guy right here. And that's a bad photo.
Yeah, it's the vertical there. You can see that long line there.
Yeah.
Follow it down and you'll find multiple circles.
Yeah, right there. Bam, bam, bam. And then look, here's the ant dude again that we saw yesterday. We saw this ant guy yesterday, and here he is again. Yesterday we saw him with mountains behind him. Today he's at the top of this line. And then here's another ant dude right here, same guy. He's on top of this like plasma rainbow where all these lightning bolts are coming down. And all this weird looking plasma type stuff. But this guy, this is significant. This represents something significant. And then in Sankawi there's a guy like this, but he's looking forward instead of sideways, and there's this like looks like a wormhole thing around him. It could have to do with farming, it could have to do with the equinox, but it's very similar, but instead of just this half moon, it's actually a full spiral. Here's some more interesting stuff, and we found this out by what could be a ship, possibly, like a sailboat. You'll see all this weird stuff coming out of his head. Here's a Space Invader guy right here. You ever played Space Invaders? And then this is possibly water or sound. I talked to some natives. They said if you see lines going horizontal, it has to do with sound. But that's kind of odd. And then here's another column, kind of like we were looking at over here. And we saw a bunch of this stuff yesterday when we were out looking at petroglyphs, and also these guys. And the Ancient Alien shows will say that these depict, grays coming out of spaceships. And actually, I mean, it does kind of have that, profile. So I could see why somebody would think that if they didn't have all this other information. But now, when you look at the plasma stuff and the computer simulations, and you compare that to the petroglyphs, and you compare this to stuff that's seen around the world, and then you'll see this right here. Does this look like an alien dude? No, it looks like stuff. It looks like boom, boom, boom kind of thing. Like an effect of something.
Isn't that the double eyeball and the nose? Isn't that like a cartoon character
Yeah.
that's famous? Does everybody know that?
Squidward?
Squidward, yes.
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
And Rex, if you go back one slide to where you were the petroglyphs that
Yeah.
you just showed, one back from there. One back from there. There, stop. That funnel guy with the head with the swirls. If you move that picture to the left, you can see the experiment to the right on the Peratt paper. His head is the top of the plasma column. And in my talk, I'm going to show you that at one stage of the plasma column, the funnel can light up exclusively, and then you get two eyeballs on top, and it's exactly that petroglyph. And they just added the feet and the arms or something to that, what they're looking at.
And they were playing Space
Invaders. The great one
Invaders.
there is at Three Rivers at least 8 or 9 times, and it's on one of the most prominent ones where the guys sitting there, if you saw that guy, that's like a dude that's sitting
Yeah.
there, it's one of the most prominent people. The big bug guys, matter of fact, I think that picture is cut from Three Rivers right there on the top gray one.
The top one, yeah, it is.
So I want to show something real quick. This guy right here, this is interesting. This looks like somebody with snake legs.
And same with the funnel guy has the weird snake legs.
But what's really cool is if you go to ancient Sumer, back in the day, they had these cuneiform tablets of Dumazid, and he has the same snake legs. And he actually asks Utu in this tablet, Utu's the sun god, to save him because these demons are taking him to the netherworld. He says, turn my legs into snakes so that I can be saved. And I wonder if there's some type of connection. Once again, they saw it happen in the heavens, and then they describe it in mythological form, right? And they turn these gods, these goddesses, and this stuff they saw in the heavens into a storyline so they can pass on from generation to generation. So I think that's pretty interesting. But this guy right here, this little space invader dude, I've seen him at a few different spots. I've seen him in Arizona too. I don't know what that guy is. It could be a burst, you know, like some type of burst of, but I'm not sure. This looks kind of like a gray alien dude, but I don't think it is. But he's got the big head and the big eyes there. This is also really interesting because you'll notice all these lines that above, these kind of look a little bit like the boats, but they don't have the central pole. And then also notice these guys down here, they've all got bodies with these big heads that are animal-looking shape. Kind of like we were looking at Newspaper Rock, where it had that elk coming out of the head. So, but why are they holding hands? Is it, what do you call it, procession?
The Precession Panel has the longest depiction of that, where there's hundreds of people, and it's split in the middle, so they're mirror image, just like that is, where you see the middle is.
Yep.
And the anthropomorphs are facing each other, and then they go out like a string of paper cutouts. Lee and I have seen this at Penitente Canyon in pictographs, and this motif, and these are all like, we're talking 350 miles apart from place to place in Four Corners, the same motif. And then in the center is Combe Ridge at the Precession Panel, which Peratt has in his paper. And he suggests that that top squiggly line, that would be emanating across the entire sky laterally, and then something would penetrate that zigzag, and then send an instability through it, like wisping smoke, and it would appear to be people dancing away, a mirror image and opposite. And he's got it in the paper right here, and that's the experiment on the left, where you have the zigzag is this equivalent to the straight line at the top, and then there's an instability or something hits it, comet comes through it, or something of a different charge, and then it breaks up, and in the sky you would see it, that pattern, maybe over a period of days, morph, and it would be a couple people, then 100 people, and maybe Squatterman in the sky, all across in a string.
I was hypothesizing that it might even be as simple as something like, kind of like seeing the northern lights, but at a lower latitude. So say there's a lot of electromagnetic activity going on, and then we start seeing northern lights at a lower latitude, and perhaps this is kind of like what you're seeing on the horizon, and it sort of looks like a bunch of people and characters. But it's even more interesting when you throw in the Peratt paper connection there.
You guys
especially the symmetry.
have all heard of the fence picket aurora, or seen a picture of that? If not, Google it, and what it looks like is a bunch of vertical lights are lit up from the bottom. If you were to turn that up and each fence picket were to become a Squatterman that's moving, it would look like a string of people across the sky.
And check this out too, like you'll notice all this down here. Maybe they just wanted to, that was their
That
way
could be that.
to visualize it. Yeah. And they're like, okay, so they're seeing something they haven't seen before, and they're just like, they're astonished, and they've got to put it down in stone because it's so significant.
Yeah, you can see it starts off pretty basic, like just the music note, and then it gets more and more advanced. It looks more and more like a person. So it's almost like you're seeing it happen, like you said, play out over the course of a couple days. And you see how they first saw it, and then you see like a day later or 2 days later, and then by the end, it's full on dancing people.
Yeah, and then here's the long necks right here. And then one of these panels looks like it even has dinosaurs. I've actually seen a few panels that look like they have dinosaurs. I'll show that in a minute.
They're more holding hands.
This is in Moab. This is actually off of Highway 279.
Wow, that looks like Penitente Canyon.
Yeah, I know, and it's hundreds of miles away. It's in Moab, Utah. It's off of Highway 279, so yeah, this is Highway 279.
You also want to notice on the top of those people, they don't look like they're very well represented, but in a lot of these, each has a different morphology of the head.
Yeah, look at that.
And then when you go and talk to the Zuni or the Hopi, they have all the kachina. So I think that this is like anthropomorphizing what they saw in the sky. They saw hundreds of gods at one point, and they all had different headdresses. And that's where we get now the modern day version of all their kachina. It's right there. But people don't want to hear that when you put that there. They're like, they're not different. Like those aren't different people, and it's clearly
Look at, yeah,
each is very unique.
very unique, and these are thousands of years old. I mean, think of the details thousands of years ago. And then these dudes, these guys are awesome. The plasma orb dudes, look at this. They're holding like plasma orbs and stuff, and they got these really mystical headdresses on, and it's just fascinating. And then you'll see some of the spirals. Here's some more spiral dude. Here's the spiral guy again, holding the spiral. And then look at this dude. He's got like 2 sets of horns, and here's some of the older ones with the what do you say, triangle body, or what would you call that? The funnel bodies. This guy looks like something's all coming out of the bottom, like it's going. And then, but there's several of these dudes I've noticed with the spirals connected. So yeah, plasma, I think this is plasma orbs of some type, because I've seen plasma orb lightning, and it looks very similar. So if there was an event that they saw, could they have, turned these people from the plasma orbs? I would say yes.
Yeah, we'll get to that in my talk. I'm going to walk through as if we're in an experiment on Earth and turn up the electricity and what each level would look like. And there is a level that's stacked circles.
Here's the chief. I think this is the chief. I don't think this is a plasma guy. I think this is literally the chief right here. So they got the chief down here of the tribe, and this is their panel, and then this is what they saw, and wow, that's so cool. Okay, now, yeah, so that's Utah Highway 279 rock art site. It is the Fremont rock art, the archaic rock art, and then I went to a place called the Moonflow Panel, which is in Moab also, and this is what you get at the Moon Panel. Look at those. So you've got a lot of, back to this. You get a lot of plasma stuff, as you can see up there. But what I don't understand is, why do you have plasma like this, and then an animal? It's just something that I've wondered before. When they have certain animals above the plasma stuff, are they depicting constellations possibly? And you asked me a great question about the stuff we were looking at yesterday, the wheels with all the dots around them. Did that connect with the zodiac wheel? And we'll look and find out shortly to see if the same dots, if there's 12, or how many there is, to see if that could be a connection there, because that's a great question. But these panels are just fascinating. And then this is at the River House. This is in another place in Utah, off of a river. It's hundreds of miles.
And those portals are exactly the same as Göbekli Tepe's standing stones.
These guys.
Yeah, I mean, no one makes the connection.
It's amazing. And then look at this.
It had to be significant.
This is actually paint up here.
Yeah, I remember that.
So this is, and then they've got some petroglyphs that look like a Squatterman right here. And then, like a hunting scene or something, I don't know. They're gathering their sheep.
Shows a spiral up there.
Yeah, right here. Here's a spiral. Here's another 3 spirals, and then another snake line right here. And look at this. This is Knights Templar cross right here, I think. I think that's showing the Knights Templar there. I could be wrong, but I could be right. That's a Knights Templar cross. Or maybe the Crusades, Spanish, might have put that there. But then here's your spiral. Here's your snake. A lot of these snakes, and then here's the local tribe. They're putting their hand marks in there. And this is the size of what corn used to look like. It's tiny. It's before it became all genetically modified, super GMO.
Yeah, these years we find are 2 or 3 inches long at max. You can't really tell there. They're tiny. And they're 3/4 of an inch wide.
And then here's the same. I'll show you. Now this one blows me away every time. You can't really, you have to look, but if you look, you're going to see this spiral, and then there's like, it's so detailed, Can you all see it? I tried to change the color to make it better. Tell me if you can see it or not.
Barely.
You can kind of make out some lines, but you
Yeah.
can't make out.
No, I can't.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so okay.
It's a red pictograph.
Yeah, it's a red pictograph.
But look at the detail. Like, they did a fantastic job putting this together. I mean, they spent time on this. And Shafu was bringing up yesterday that one of those petroglyphs on the trail looked like a peace sign. It isn't a peace sign. He actually even took he believes, now I don't know if he's right on this, but he believes that's like the breakup of planetary bodies when Shamash broke up, and he believes Shamash was a star at one point which blew up and is now Saturn. And if that is what happened, when you looked at this one that kind of looked like a peace sign, but it wasn't, he took some, not a ruler, but something to see if it was straight or how far off it was, and based upon his theory, he thinks it has something to do with the breakup of that planetary body at the start of that time. I don't know, it was interesting to listen to. But this is in, is this one in Arizona? No, this is the river house also. This is some weird looking stuff there. And then here once again you can see the paint still in the spirals up there. And that's at the river house in Utah. And you have to, it's a really long hike to get there, or you can take a raft. It takes you longer by raft. Just looked at that one. These were taken in southern Arizona actually, and by what's the Tucson, southern Arizona, Tucson, southern Arizona, kind of outskirts of there. So a lot of really cool petroglyphs out here, similar to what we were looking at yesterday. This was either from the early 1900s or the late 1800s. So just kind of give you an idea. If you want to see something a little bit more modern. This guy, I think, was a Jewish guy that showed up at this site, and he was definitely putting his own petroglyphs.
And you can see how white that is compared to what we saw
I
yesterday.
just did it,
Well,
that's
you want to
ransom.
hear something crazy?
That's ransom.
So there's actually a group of Ashkenazi Jews that came and settled in the American Southwest
That's right.
in like the 1800s.
Okay.
And they were like instrumental in forming like a lot of the culture.
Yeah, the oldest Ten Commandments is in the center of New Mexico, just about 2 hours from here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, we should go check that out. And so look at this stuff. Look at all these.
It's
It's
fake.
fake. It's
Oh,
totally fake.
Yeah.
Oh, it
We
is?
checked it out, it's totally fake.
Oh, we should totally not go check it out then.
Yeah, well, we have
Okay.
a video on it,
Okay.
we'll repost it or something on Oppenheimer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this was in Arizona too, you guys. And look at all the checkerboard patterns. Really bizarre. And then you'll see these circles like we were looking at yesterday with a dot in the circle. You know, is that a star? Is that Shamash? I don't know. But something's definitely going on here, and it kind of reminds me of the Pratt stuff that we were looking at.
First greedy dude's like, everyone gets a square.
Yeah.
That's how we're doing it.
Tic-tac-toe, man.
Jimmy's over there.
And then, look at this. Like, look at all these weird graphs. I mean, what the heck does that mean? And once again, this is in southern Arizona, close to Mexico. And you got all the plasma stuff. So they were seeing the same thing probably. And what I wonder about these guys right here, with the lines underneath them, is that representation of a comet, or are they showing how something fell from the skies? I'd like to hear your theories on this. What do you think this represents? Anybody have an idea?
We saw that same spoked wheel yesterday. Everyone walked by it at the very last stop before we got to the cliff, and then we had the incident. That spoked wheel was by everyone's right foot as we walked around that bottom spot.
And that upper portion, like I call this like a web,
Yeah.
we've seen that elsewhere. We've seen that in Fried Canyon and a bunch of other places. It shows up again and again. I don't know what it is.
I wonder if it's not like that, the plasma
It could
hitting some kind of field. Maybe there's
It
like
could
an increase in the resonance in like
Sure.
the magnetosphere or the ionosphere or something.
Absolutely
It
could
creates
be.
kind of like a grid look when they're looking at it,
Yeah.
you know, when it's like fully charged up, you know?
They uncovered the simulation with it.
I may be mistaken, but I think there are some sort of more classical archaeological interpretations that would suggest that it's like a net or something for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't really
We're
buy
going
it.
fishing.
It doesn't really
Yeah.
buy, I don't buy that. It doesn't really make sense.
Right.
They really
Wagon
seem
wheels
like,
and fish nets.
Yeah, we're going
early
fishing for
attempts at
wheels.
grid maps, because you find those at most of the petroglyph sites that are near other stuff that they have maps of the ground, maps of the mountain, and maps of the stars at each place.
Mhm.
So like, someone that read this would just go to the other place and be like, oh yeah, okay, that's what's over here.
The Chaco roads were also a spoked wheel.
Yeah.
So from Chaco, the roads went directly out from the central place, all the outliers. And there was a spoke that went to the north to Aztec, and there was a spoke that went a little bit to the northeast. Well, actually, San Marone's is north, northeast is Aztec. And so all the lower wheel, the spoked wheel, not the medicine wheel, that could represent the Chaco roads.
Look at this. We got the circle with 1 dot, the circle with 2 lines, the circle with 5 lines, a circle with 2 lines again. So are they telling us a whole story here? I mean, there's got to be significance to why one has 4 lines and one has 5. Or
Some are caught, some are horizontal.
Yeah. And then this is cool because I saw this also in Sankawi. And Sankawi, first time I went there was with Diamond. And I recently went there again just to do a follow-up. And there's some petroglyphs out there that look like this. But it has an X inside of it, which could represent a star or something, but it has the same body. And then next to it, it has what looks like a palm tree or something. And it has almost like Sumerian, Babylonian characteristics to it, I feel. This is interesting. That looks like something you'd see if you looked under a microscope, you know? I mean, is that an element? And then this, I don't think it is, but it's cool how they did that.
Honeycomb, my favorite cereal.
Yeah, they got honeycomb cereal there. And then this, so like next to it, you see this guy, which is really cool. And then there's like a hand above a box with lines, and then some more circles in the background there. Okay, now this stuff, this is really cool. This looks like a Nazi UFO.
Right, Antarctica.
That's, but yeah. But this is in a different location. This is in St. John area. It's actually a very secret location. It's a sacred location. This is a sacred Zuni location that the Zuni do passages through every year. And I was blessed to have the opportunity to go out there, and I'm real happy I can share with you. But this one I found just so weird. You got the Kokopelli player. You got upside down Squatterman kind of, and then you got a bird, which we see these birds a lot. Another Squatterman up here. But this thing is just so bizarre. It looks like a tractor beams coming out of it or something almost. And if you've seen the Nazi Bell UFO, that's kind of the same depiction, but what's that coming out of the top? So that's obviously wild imagination, or is it? I don't know. This is another one that I really like, and this is also sacred Zuni land. And these guys right here, looks like they're handing something off to each other, these two. And then you've got a lot of Birkeland out here. Got a couple Squattermen. You got this plasma wave here, but what are these two doing? Are they handing something over to each other? Because the story is they were given this cosmic egg, and then they basically exchanged. Something came down from the heavens. They were gifted these eggs, then they went separate ways. So I don't know if that's what this story is telling us, combined with older stories like the Squattermans and stuff. But that's a really fun experience.
Hey Rex, upper left corner, yeah, that guy right there.
Birdman.
With the Birdman, yes, that's another plasma formation that you see a lot. You had some other slides earlier in this that had I call them duck heads.
Yeah.
Where the head has this duck shape.
What you can learn from this is so much with the people down in the bottom right corner is that the stick men and the duck head stick men are not people. Because clearly they could make people.
Right.
So this is like really, you can learn from this is like something else is going on there. If they could do that, they don't need to do stick men that are all identical. So.
Yeah, look at them. I mean, you can tell they're handing something over. I think he's handing over the egg.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, it would be a mistake to think that everything that's depicted was not done entirely on purpose. I think we have this idea, we're like, oh, they're people from 1,000 years ago, they must have been like children and drawing little pictures, and I think that's a huge mistake. I think all of it's completely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, okay, so this is some stuff that I was going to talk about now. I've got a friend that's Hopi. He's the last of his tribe, and he's given me some fascinating information. I was really skeptical before I met him because I heard, I had another friend that was talking to him, and once I got to know him and he showed me a few things, he seems super legit to me. And he talks about the space people and the ant people. And he says the ant people are real. And I told him about an experience I had when I was just a little kid, where I thought I was like looking at these insectoid dudes in my crib. And he said, well, that wasn't them. And I said, well, how do you know? And he says, well, they don't have the ability to, to do that. So they're not like technologically advanced. They don't have spaceships and stuff like that. Like they're kind of primitive, but they live in a few places, and they live under the earth. And he was telling me that some of these petroglyphs that, I thought maybe were plasma or something else, he said these represent the ant people. Now whether he could be wrong. I'm not saying he's right, but he said these ones represent the ant people, and he said that the ant people will actually leave these X's sometimes as their markings, and they're really small, and so that's one of the things, that they're really small. I've wondered, like if the ant people are really small, then why would the depiction of the petroglyph be larger than the people? I've questioned that, and I still do, but I don't know. These could be the ant people, could be plasma, could be the ant people. This guy right here kind of reminds me of what I saw a little bit when I was in my crib. This is just the facial feature, but he doesn't have like regular arms either. He has this wavy thing coming out of it. So does that? It could be something completely different. It just kind of resonated with me when I saw that. So I thought I'd share that with you guys, because I thought it was.
And when you walk in 5-6 miles to these barrier-style areas, it affects you.
It does.
In a very creepy way. These are gigantic. A lot of them are 30, some of them are 40 feet up, and they're 8 feet high, and you're like, well, you're sitting in a wash, and you're like, maybe in 1,000 years, 30 feet is eroded. But just the size of them and the way they're on the wall, it's very creepy, I can assure you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's they're talking. They're telling you subconsciously as well. Think about all the information we're getting subconsciously that we don't pick up with our conscious minds. But yeah, these are fascinating.
It's interesting too that if you back up a slide, there are actually petroglyphs inside the pictograph.
Yeah. Like
So
right
like
here.
what's going on there? Are these different people who are, reclaiming these images, or?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. Or maybe the next tribe, even if this, okay, Uncle Billy.
Right.
Well, in the Fremont pictures you were showing, they're more recent petroglyphs, so it always looks
Oh.
like there's hunting scenes on top of these plasma scenes. So they're not the same story. They're just in the same spot.
Different aspects of life.
Now, look at this. Here's the big-eyed plasma guy, right? You see those big eyes right there? But I've seen this exact same petroglyph in different locations, which tells me it's either the same person or that has significance. Like it's a part of the language as well. And I've seen this. Here's a hunter. Like, look at this guy. It looks like this guy's on a horse, doesn't it?
Standing on
Yeah, he's standing. Woo! But I really like, here's Birkeland. Birkeland right there. This guy's really interesting. Oh yeah, this one. This is my favorite right here. This one. This is a volcano. And they depict it as a person with a dress, right? Underneath it, this picture doesn't do it justice, but underneath it there's a tube that leads to like an entrance. And this I believe is actually showing us that there is a location, maybe it's a lava tube or something. Don and I are going to go do some exploring out there, that there's an entrance to an underground something, whether or not it's a lava tube or what, but this is a volcano, it's blowing up, and they're depicting it in an anthropomorphic form, showing that there's actually some type of entrance there. Maybe I can find the rest of it.
Where is this? Where is that located?
This is Newspaper Rock, actually, which is by the Canyonlands, and you can go visit it. It's one of the most famous petroglyph panels there is. It's by Moab.
It's very easy to get to. It's like right on the road.
Yeah. Okay, so here it is. Here's the whole thing. And, yeah, there's the volcano right there. Kind of hard to see, but I'm going to zoom in. Okay, you see that? And then you see there's...
it goes down and it's missing. That's old.
Yeah. So that's a volcano, and then there's the entrance. And then you got a lot... I mean, this has got tribe after tribe after tribe. Multitudes of tribes have been here. I think that's why they call it Newspaper Rock. There's so many different...
And it's really obvious, those two you're touching up top there are the oldest glyphs.
Yeah.
Those two, you can clearly see are patina.
Yeah.
Relative to everything else.
Okay, I got that, and then now I'd like to share with you, take a look at the Sumerian tablet in Arizona here.
Oh yeah.
Here we go. so this is the tablet that was found. The story of this tablet, and this is the back side of it, is it was discovered in a mine outside of the Grand Canyon, either in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. This is the front of it. And the gentleman that found it owned a large mining operation, or he worked for a large mining operation in the Grand Canyon at the time, the largest in the world. And they found this tablet and several others. And then the guy that found this gave it to his family in his will, so it's been passed down. And here's the fish. You can see the fish right here, and you can also see a lady holding something right here. But here's what it would look like if you were to kind of scribble it. You can see something, she's pointing at something, and then there's the fish man right here. Remember we were just looking at the kalu, the fish man? So you got the fish man right here, and then somebody translated this that didn't even know the story. They do a little bit of Sumerian as far as translations, and they told me the story of this, and I hope I still have it because it's talking about Isis, Queen of Heaven. Here's Isis, or a priestess of Isis, and then once again we've got the representation of Enki, possibly. Here's the tablet. You can see the characters. It's a tiny tablet.
Yeah, most cuneiform tablets are smaller than 2 square inches.
Yeah, it's not even 2 square. I don't think it's 2 square inches.
Size of a piece of cereal.
Look at this, and look at the detail. Here's another icon that's in Sumerian. Let me see if I can. This is, I think, Viking or Icelandic or something.
Those are runes.
Yeah.
Those are runes.
And then, so that's the tablet, and this is a sliver of the tablet that she sent to me, and I need to get this tested somewhere. So I've actually got evidence from the tablet itself. We can go see that tablet anytime. If this tablet is legit, and I think there's a 50-50 chance it is, I actually have 60-40. I'm going to be optimistic about it. I don't think she's making up a story. If she was making up a story, why is she going to send me a sample? Why, I don't know. I think
What is unique is that we have 3 other Sumerian tablets from North America. The King Joseph tablet is the most studied.
Okay.
The 3 tablets that we know of that aren't this, I've never heard of this, are all simple Sumerian receipts for everyday normal nonsense.
Like business transaction.
Buying 80 goats and pay rent. So if this one is unique, this is a very special tablet.
And if it is describing Isis like it was translated, I had it's just a synchronistic moment where when I went out to the location where the Kincaid Cave is supposed to be. You've all heard of the Kincaid Cave. And it's a great story. It's a wonderful story. And so we went there, and I took out my aerial camera, and I got I got 50 gigs worth of aerial footage over there. Didn't see any cave. I'm not saying it's not there. I didn't see it. But what I did have was a very spiritual experience, and we were overlooking, I think, the Isis temple, which is a mountain, but it's named the Isis temple out there, because there's names for different gods and deities from around the world and different timelines that were chosen. But I had a really spiritual experience that happened when we left there in Page that's connected to Isis. I'll just leave it at that. So if this is genuine, that changes everything. It's describing Isis, and it was found in a mine shaft in the Grand Canyon. How cool is that? If this is legit, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So I told her I would love to have the tablet if they're gonna sell it, and so we'll see where it goes. But that's incredible. I think that's a really cool story. So that's basically is that the presentation? Yeah, I think that's. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Question and answers?
Kincaid Cave, is that in the